There it is, downtown Vancouver, one of the greatest cities in all of Canada. I love this city with all my heart. I consider it home, a place where I'm gonna be making all my dreams come true. And I'm actually in East Vancouver today, getting ready to host a very special East Vancouver get-together. I have a very special guest. I'm gonna be meeting him for the first time today. His name's Justin R. Olson. He comes all the way from LA, also known as Jayo Staxx. And I'm gonna have a chat with him, bring him on my get-together experience for East Vancouver, share his perspective, share his adventures, share his life journey with all of you. And hopefully you guys can learn something and find inspiration in your own lives. Let's get started.
Matt, right?
Yeah, Jayo?
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Finally, man. After all this time, you know, heard so many great things of you from Achi, been following you along in your journeys from LA to Las Vegas and everywhere in between.
And now into this journey now.
Welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you so
to Vancouver.
much.
I understand that you know the city well, but hopefully I'm going to be able to kind of like show you a side of East Vancouver that you haven't experienced before. And at the same time, we'll be able to have a great conversation, learn more about what Justin R. Olson, aka Jayo Staxx, is all about. How does that sound?
I used to live here, but I never actually went down the East Van route, so it's the first time for me, so I'm
Nice, nice. It goes to show you that through Get-Together, anything is possible. We could take someone that has lived in Vancouver and show them a side of Vancouver that they've never experienced before. So you live in LA, right?
About 5 years now.
My understanding is you're intertwined in the entertainment space. Being in entertainment, that's the right place to be, right? So
Yes.
tell me a little bit more about like what Jayo Staxx is all about. What are you up to professionally?
Story actually starts here in Vancouver. I was originally from Saskatoon, but me and my writing partner, we had this dream of being in the film business, right?
Nice.
And we're from Saskatchewan, so it was like, what do we do? How do we get in there? And we actually came out here to Vancouver Film School. So our start was
Amazing.
actually here.
Interesting.
And we kind of went, just kind of building our craft. But the dream was always to have a home base in Vancouver,
Yeah.
Hollywood North,
Okay.
in LA. And
Makes
I was
sense.
just blessed with my path that, because I'm First Nations, there was actually a path for me to actually get down there quicker. There's a lot of
Interesting.
people, it's really hard to get down to the
Yeah.
States and actually work down there. But
For sure.
I had this
I can
path,
relate.
Yes. And then, so basically, it's just been this lifelong journey of just getting to be filmmakers. And
kidding.
so that's where LA, Vancouver, that's where we kind of landed here.
Awesome. So you've been in LA for 5 years.
Yes.
You're pursuing your filmmaking dreams.
Right.
At the epicenter of it all, right? Hollywood is kind of where you'd want to be as far as filmmaking.
Yes.
Right? Much better off in Hollywood, say, compared to Vancouver in some ways.
It's one of those things too. It's just, I always look at it, there's two different industries. Like there is a huge industry here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
But LA will always be the big leagues. All the major
sure.
studios out there, that's always gonna be the first choice. There's a lot
Totally.
of great opportunities out here, but if you're actually looking for that big hit, it has to kind of be in LA. I believe you can make it in Vancouver in this industry, but that's why I was saying too, to have a home base in LA and Vancouver, it's kind of like we're kind of hedging our bets.
Best of both worlds
Exactly.
kind of thing, right?
We have a foot
Yeah.
on both sides of the door.
Uh-huh.
Because even for me as a First Nation, that's why I'm resident there and might trying to bring some ties back here because there's a lot more
Yeah.
grant opportunities for filmmakers.
True.
In LA, it's all private equity. I have to go find a studio to pay for it, right?
No
So
kidding.
That's
Yeah.
why I say this. My writing partner lives here, so we're kind of
Yeah.
we're in both markets and just actively pursuing it.
Nice, nice. So what's the progress been like? You've been in LA for 5 years.
Yes.
What's that been like? Trying to like make something big happen, I would imagine, right?
Mhm.
Hit a home run maybe. What has that process been like and where do you feel you're at with it?
It was actually being reborn again. Because when I went
Yeah.
out there, I started from scratch. I had a job at the casinos. I was a cushy corporate job, so I was making
see.
good money, and I could have just played the course for the rest of my life, retired millionaire. That wasn't my passion. I wanted
Yeah.
to be in film.
For sure.
And LA was always the end goal for that. So the first couple of years I went out there, I took all the money I had saved up, and there's a period before you can get your Social Security at least, right?
Right.
So to get
Yeah.
to that process, that's money being spent. Literally,
Absolutely.
I went all in.
You
I'm
went
like,
all in on your American dream, basically.
I had it all budgeted out. I said I can last 2 years if I don't make a single dollar.
Nice.
Luckily, I never
Yeah.
got to that number. So
Good for you.
But yeah, basically after I got my footing down, I was like, okay, I started doing audience work. I was doing a lot, like all those game shows.
Yeah.
They need people in the seats for that, right? So I
Right.
was doing work like that, a lot of audio, background work.
Nice.
Doing that, I got a broader experience in the film industry because not only was I doing that, I was actually watching all the cameras.
Yeah, you
around
got
me,
exposure to like what
watching
was
the
going
system.
on behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
because you're all in the studio lots, and
Yeah.
as a filmmaker, I want to be. I wanted to do the big studio stuff. So like
For
say,
sure.
people are just there for, their quick buck. I'm sitting there actually, learning, there's 2 people operating that camera. The lighting setup's this way, and it's an education that, you can't put a dollar value on.
I respect that, man. You really went all in on pursuing your American dream, and you're 5 years in with that, and obviously it's opened up the world to you, and there's all kinds of opportunity that comes from being in America and making things happen and being a productive member of the country, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure that's paid dividends, but I'm just curious, what kind of challenges did you have going through the process of, just arriving in America, making it stick, right? And then being where you are today. Did you come across any challenges?
The challenges, yeah, because again, I had a special way of getting there. It's called the Jay Treaty, which allows First Nations to go cross-border.
Okay.
But with that, it should be easy process. But when you're dealing with the government agencies, there's time lapses or there's miscommunication. So something that should have taken me, literally I had all the paperwork in order.
Yeah.
But there was one thing that they didn't understand properly, and it just set back the whole process 6 or 7 months.
They didn't understand the legalities of it in the way that you did?
Yes, right.
So they're saying, hey, no, you can't do this?
Yeah, so basically we need another form that you already have kind of thing, or re-stamped.
Uh-huh.
But that set me back probably 7 months of working,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So instead of the budget I had, instead of making money, I was just spending money, right?
So it's a good thing you had that 2-year cushion, right?
Yes, that was the biggest thing. I've learned if you have a plan in place, you leave little to go wrong. So
So you didn't feel uncomfortable because you knew you had the plan and you knew the facts and you knew the laws and you knew that.
That's I think what separated me from actually being able to do it. Because I had, like I said, a full plan in place.
Yeah.
I can see if things were gonna go away. If that happens, I can deal with it this way. Some people go there and say they get to the border and they're like, well, how am I gonna live now? How am I gonna make money? I only have $20 in my pocket.
No kidding. So a little bit of money in the pocket combined with understanding what your options are.
Yes, exactly.
That's what's gonna make the difference. That's what's gonna make the dream work. So you figured out the way, right?
Yes.
Legally. Let's say someone like myself, I was born and raised in Canada. I'm second generation. My parents were born here. But someone like myself that doesn't have the First Nations card, right? To some degree, right? Do I have options or is it gonna be harder for me?
It's gonna be harder, but the biggest thing with America is money talks.
Right.
A couple of big things, I don't know the number. Basically, you can bring $750,000 worth of investment.
Yeah.
You can get a speed track to your green card.
An investor's visa.
Or if you can get sponsored by somebody for a job, but that's really hard. Even say in the film stuff, because you basically have to prove you have a talent that they can't find locally.
Yeah. I can relate to that because back in the day, I used to work for a publicly traded company, an American company, Greenfield Online, publicly traded on the NASDAQ. This is around 2007, and the management wanted me to go to America. They were, drumming things up for me, trying to get me my visa, right? But they couldn't prove that I was the only one capable of doing the job, So then I remained stuck in Canada.
The pathway was there, but just that one thing, that little credential kind of broke the road for you,
Yeah, but there's always ways, right? You can figure it out one way or another.
That's why I always believe if there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
And that's why for me, it's actually, so this next year, I technically will get my citizenship now.
Good on you.
Because the goals were to get the green card, and just knowing that, and then 5 years has passed now, and I get my citizenship. Now it's
amazing.
Even though with my situation, they can't even legally deport me because my First Nation status. This is nice. It's a little bit of loyalty to the country,
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Good on you for pursuing the American dreams. I highly respect that. I love America. I think very highly of it. So I highly respect that you found a way to make it happen. And I wish you all the best with what's next.
The one thing with that too is the beautiful thing about the American dream, it can be a nightmare so quick.
That's
because
true.
It can spit,
definitely.
You see these people, I went there, $20 in my pocket, and they make it, but you know how many other stories who didn't make it? So that's
no kidding.
One thing that kind of humbles me with it is just knowing that there's so many other people
It's not
here.
guaranteed, right?
Exactly. So if I want to make it work, all the tools are here, I just got to put in the work. It humbles you a bit, and that's when you can make your own dreams.
Makes sense. I think that's probably why I didn't end up really pushing for America, because I felt like I didn't have having a family, it wasn't just me. So I didn't think I had enough resources to make my dream move to California happen. So alternatively, I moved from Toronto to Vancouver, which is still a fair compromise. And if there's any other Canadians out there that can't make that American move happen, but they want change, Vancouver is a great second option.
Coming from Saskatchewan, the first key said Vancouver and then LA, but also I always consider, Vancouver. If you can't make it to LA, Vancouver, for me, will obviously be my second home. Well, I'll probably go see some more of it that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. I'll take you around. Let's go. Yeah, so technically I have you on this Get Together experience, Get Together East Vancouver. And the whole idea behind Getogether, I traveled a lot with family, with friends, and alone, all over America, 30 plus states, Canada coast to coast,
Wow.
and parts of Europe. And every time that I went to travel to a different city, I always had this desire to kind of break past the tourist spots and kind of experience the city like a local. And in doing this, oftentimes what I would find is I'd be lost, I'd be alone, I wouldn't know where to go. So I created Getogether and launched it here in Vancouver, kind of fill that void for other people. So the whole idea here is, I'm bringing you through East Vancouver from a local's perspective. I'm gonna take you down the right path. I'm gonna show you all the great spots. I'm gonna make sure you have good food and drink, and you're gonna get to see a part of Vancouver that you would otherwise not be able to see if you're kind of just doing it alone as a tourist.
That's always one of my struggles when I go to a new city. It's just you want to get past just the tourist stuff.
Totally, man.
But you're just where do you start?
Absolutely, yeah.
You got people like you.
Yeah, so you just book your experience with Getogether, and we'll get you right past there and ensure that you have the best possible time imaginable. I even see Getogether being, all across the world, and even in a city like Los Angeles, right?
Exactly.
It's a massive city, right? How do you know where to go to kind of like above and beyond Venice Beach, right? Or Santa Monica Pier, or those other kind of well-known tourist spots, right? Obviously there's amazing local neighborhoods in LA.
Just around the corner too.
Just around the corner,
Yeah.
There you go. So Getogether, I see it being in LA and cities all across America and eventually cities across the world. So I understand you're a First Nations.
Correct.
Right? And we're walking here in East Vancouver, the unceded land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. So how did we end up here, right? This is unceded land of the First Nations people, and all this stuff has been acquired and built up. How did we end up in this situation with the land and the building and the First Nations people?
Well, unceded land is really just a nice way of saying stolen land.
Stolen land. So we're walking along stolen land?
Yes, because they never gave up the territory.
Right.
But
People just took it?
Exactly. It's just so valuable that they said, okay, took it. See, in Vancouver, they acknowledge the land. They're they say, we acknowledge this is unceded territory.
Right.
They're saying, we acknowledge that we stole this land.
Yeah.
But also too, because of that, you have all this kind of infrastructure in this great city, right?
Right.
That's kind of the saddest thing about it, though, is that it was we see this is your territory, but this one's too valuable. We'll keep this one. Yes.
And are they paying the First Nations people back in some ways to compensate?
Like I know in Saskatchewan, we have urban reserves where they can actually buy pieces of land and then within cities, and then that property is tax exempt, right?
I see.
So they gave them more of this property and actually said, hey, here's an opportunity to build some economic development.
Right.
But also I think too, there needs to be some drive from the First Nation people to do that as well, right?
I see.
More fight, but also too, it's just it's so valuable that Vancouver and all that, so they're not going to give it back.
Right.
And how do you rectify a situation about stolen land without giving it back?
It's like someone stealing your home from you, right?
Yeah, steal your
how
home.
How are you going to forgive them?
And then
how are you going to
okay,
move on?
Here's $100, but your home is still gone.
That's a challenging situation.
But also too, it's one of those things where it's tough for me when you look at it because yeah, it should never happen, but the same token, we have to start looking forward. We can't dwell too much in the past.
You can't dwell in the past, no
so
doubt.
This is where we're at. How do we move forward in a way that rectifies some of the past, but not destroying the future? Because the only way we can actually truly rectify that is just tear this all down and give it back.
Right.
But that's not going to happen. So
I understand.
How can we do it in a way where both sides are benefiting? I'm not too well versed with exactly where everything stands with, say, the economic stuff. So they could be getting some good money because there is some little reservations within the city limits.
Right.
But again, it's just the small little piece of land.
No
There's
kidding.
just not the good stuff.
Right.
But you can go.
Right.
That's yours over there.
Here's a little piece of what is good.
And the sad thing with those times too, when they met the settlers, that you're negotiating with people who actually don't have a true grasp of ownership.
No kidding.
Because that wasn't the First Nation way. It's just all our land.
We lived off the land. For everyone to enjoy, kind of thing.
And then you have these people come in and say, "Oh, we'll give you this, and that."
Yeah.
Plus with language barriers,
the white man
they're kind of sure. And then then you're locked out of all this.
Negotiated out of things in some ways.
Without even knowing.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a tough thing. It's because one of those things, there is some things that need to be rectified from the past, but at the same token, it's been so long. I really don't like that when people dwell in the past too much.
For sure.
It's like, okay, we get it. it's bad, but we can't change what happened.
No kidding.
We can just look forward and
Yeah,
but also just needs to be some accountability on both ends too.
for sure.
So
Yeah, I understand. And I can relate, right? Because, human nature, they screw each other over all the time.
Exactly.
They take advantage of each other all the time. I've been taken advantage of by countless people in my life. I never would have expected that to happen. It did. What am I going to do? The more I dwell on it, and I've been guilty of dwelling on things in the past. It never moved me forward, right? So I think the point that you made about like looking forward and figuring out what you can do to kind of like build on where you are now certainly is going to go a long way for the individual at least,
Exactly.
right? And you're an example of that, right? And there you are in LA pursuing your ultimate dreams, right?
yeah, there was just through treaties as well that I benefited from being First Nation.
Okay.
But again, too, it's you can only be as good as you want to be, right? So
For sure.
Even there needs to be some accountability on both ends. I think too, like some of the First Nations need to really focus on more development of their communities. Because you see corruption on here, all there, but it's like you can only be as good as you want to be.
No kidding.
And if you're dwelling on the past, pointing fingers, okay, well we're like this because that happened to us. It's like okay, well we get it, but how do you move forward from there?
No kidding.
Right?
Yeah. You got to work on yourself as an individual and figure out how you can get your piece of the pie. That's the funny thing, right? Kind of like circling back to America and Canada and capitalists versus socialists and everything in between. I feel like someone like myself, I'm an extremely entrepreneurial person, right? Who I am as an individual through and through is actually better suited for America. Because like I'm all about like free enterprise and building businesses and making big things happen in the pursuit of your dreams. I would actually probably have been better off somehow, some way, being in America.
Right.
And here I am in Canada trying to make these big things happen. And yes, it's possible, right? Look all around us. People have done ridiculously great things, right? But at the same time, I find it to still be harder. And because there's like some level of socialist principles ingrained in our country, it makes it harder for the individual to realize their full potential.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, even going back to the First Nation thing, I think that's what holds back a lot of the reservations back is that the government has made them dependent on them.
No
so
kidding.
It's just like there is a lot of really good nations out there that are actually having economic development. But there's a lot that's when you're just basically getting fed, you're just getting they get their money every year from the government. And that funds all your operations. Like, where's that hunger to do something more? You just
because
you fragment them, divide and conquer, and then you just make them dependent. And then if you're just feeding them, then they're not going to do anything, right?
No kidding.
Even with like the unceded land, you could still like, I believe they're still probably negotiating stuff out, trying to get some of it back or something like that. But if you want, you kind of
process.
Yeah, you got to fight for it, right?
Yeah.
As long as you don't stay dependent and just you're paying us, so we'll hold back.
So is there anything you think that we can do as a country between Canada, First Nations, the people that are here, the people that are coming, the people that are going? Is there anything that can be done to make Canada a better place for everybody?
I think it's just accountability on all sides, as I said before. I think it has to happen from the government side, has to happen from the First Nation side.
Yeah.
They said again with the First Nation side, I believe there's a lot of, the resentment there is like, it's well-deserved. But same token too, there's got to be a point where we say, okay, we acknowledge that happened, but how do we go forward on this?
For sure.
And I think just even the greater population, just understanding, okay, just acknowledging, like truly acknowledging, like we messed this up, that was not cool.
Right.
And there is a lot more funding coming through. Like there's a lot of treaty land entitlements, so like they're getting money back to buy up more land, which is good. But that's kind of a slow progress, right?
Yeah, and where are they able to buy that land though? Is it in
exactly? It's just kind of
feasible places, or is it kind of like
expansions off your own territory kind of thing, right?
Got it.
So it's a slow process, but
are we having progress on this topic?
It's well, the current Liberal government kind of seems like they're trying to, but then it's just kind of slow draining. Because even too, like small things like infrastructure, like for like clean water in places, like that should be number one priority. That shouldn't be a lingering thing, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's like they say that we care, but a budget for some silly project could easily fund water pipes into these First Nations.
I see. And there are First Nations people in Canada right now that don't have like pipeline access to fresh water?
Yeah, so they'll be right now, like they'll have water access by the boil advisory, so they couldn't.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And technically, the government should make a priority to ensure that all citizens of Canada have access to clean drinking water.
That one little simple thing shows that, okay, we actually do care. There's a lot of talk of saying we do care, but action speaks a lot louder than words.
Well, thank you for sharing your perspective on this topic. It's something that's near and dear to me. Like, I just try to be understanding towards all people in all situations and supportive, right? And understanding all different perspectives. So yeah, thanks for sharing the perspective. I learned something, and I think it's important to dig deeper on this topic and do.
Actually, the biggest thing on that is just dialogue and action, like being able to talk about this in the end, but coming to solutions.
For
Okay,
sure.
we talk about it, find some common ground, okay, let's fix the problem. That's all, just keep on doing that. Again, it's a big problem.
Incremental progress along the way, right?
So, but I think there's progress to be made, but we can be doing a lot better too.
So yeah, we're here at the City Center Motor Hotel. This is a very iconic destination for Vancouver. It used to be a hotel. It no longer is. Once the pandemic hit, they closed it down and then they turned it into an art studio. This is actually where they host Van Mural Fest every summer. There's a huge party here. There's DJs, there's people creating art. Yeah, and technically all these rooms are now creator studios.
That is awesome.
Different artists just making whatever they want to make. Yeah. So it's a really cool spot. Unfortunately, what I heard is it's not going to be like this forever. They are going to tear it all down and build new condos.
Ooh, that
yeah,
sucks.
Yeah, for the time being, it's a pretty cool spot. Pays tribute to the artist, and it's one of my favorite places in all of East Vancouver.
So that makes sense, yeah. So the guy with the woodwork in there.
Exactly.
I was just like,
yeah.
What's that guy doing?
He's making something. He's
But it
bringing
makes
his
sense.
vision to life, right?
That's awesome.
So to end things off, I'm just going to ask you 5 super quick questions.
Okay.
And feel free to answer them however you wish.
Sounds good.
Ready?
Yes.
Let's start with this. Why America and not Canada?
I just always believed it's the big leagues. It's just the population itself. Like I always tell people as an example is that California, the state itself, that population is greater than Canada.
No kidding.
So for even any business, like obviously for me, wanting to be in film, LA is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Any other business you're gonna get into, you have the demand and just the market out there that outweighs Canada. So you
For
times
sure.
that, and then the U.S. is a greater market that's 10 times the size, right? So I've always kind of looked at it that way. It's kind of like 10 times the opportunity.
I am 100% on board with you. And I know that from experience because I've seen the way America works. I know hands-on the way Canada works. And there's a definite difference. It's day and night in that regard.
Also,
For
too,
sure.
the biggest thing I learned during the pandemic was actually the political system has a lot more personal freedoms,
Oh, does
which
it?
is actually a big thing. I never really thought about it until then.
Interesting.
And you always kind of think Canada would be a little bit more, but you'll see, okay, there's actually, the federal government has a little bit more power than they should, and there's a lot more checks and balances down south with the Constitution and everything. I've actually gone a true appreciation for that Constitution, so.
Very interesting. And I guess that's what Americans are always trying to protect. right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I know you're a huge fan of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Why do you love that movie so much, and what does it do to inspire you in your own life adventures?
This is actually the perfect spot to answer that question too.
Nice.
But for me, it's a funny psychedelic trip movie, but it's actually for me, it's never been about the movie.
Right.
It's about the character of Hunter S. Thompson. And I go through these phases as a writer, or just an artist in general, analyzing all these great writers and musicians and all that. And he was so influenced with his alcohol substance abuse, which shows there's always this thin line between genius and crazy.
For sure.
And you go in these moments that it's like, this guy's out of his mind, but then he creates something so amazing.
No kidding.
But secondly, which I've been really incorporating a lot with my writing, is his philosophy on gonzo journalism, which is essentially a first-person narration. All the stories are based around him as the main character.
Yeah.
And you actually truly get involved with his ideas. Like, for example, his first book, Hell's Angels. He actually went and was a part of the Hell's Angels for that writing. So he had a first-person account. But also with his writing, there was a level of he would bend reality. So it's it really happened, but there's some little areas in there that are not true in here, and he just kind of bends with it as he wants, right?
Right.
And that was just always been my fascination with him. So every time I get, actually I have my Hunter S. Thompson glasses on me right now.
Oh, wow.
And when I'm in a writing spot, like he always wear the yellow aviators.
No
and
kidding.
it's like changing a lens in the camera. You put those on, it just gives you a different perspective. And in those moments, they have a bottle of wine, I'm like, okay, I tap my Hunter S. Thompson mode, and then it just flows
So
out.
he inspires you as a writer.
Exactly, yes.
Amazing.
So people look at it, again, it's a funny psychedelic trip, they're doing drugs, and people think that's the reason. It's like, it's not that at all. It's a piece of it, it's fun, entertaining, but just,
it's more about like what they're creating.
It's like more about the man behind the madness.
Yeah,
and understanding that, and Obviously, we don't want to be crazy like he was, but you kind of pick out like, okay, you pick out where the genius came from,
Yeah.
and hopefully apply it to your own art.
Yeah, I actually recently read a book. It's called The Hypomanic Edge.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of the author, but like it's all about like hypomanics like exist in America, and so many of them were such influential in making like crazy things happen. Right? Like even hypomanics were the ones that like made Hollywood a thing. It was nothing, and then these crazy like hypomanic dudes created Hollywood kind of thing, right?
Yes.
So a little bit of craziness is what actually makes great things happen.
Exactly,
right?
and there's a thin line between it.
Yep,
You're either
definitely.
on one side or the other.
You want to find that balance. All right, so last question. Next to LA, what is your favorite American city?
Hands down, it's Las Vegas.
Nice.
Because living in LA, it's only a 4-hour drive.
Right.
And before I moved out to LA, I worked for the casino. So I've always just have, even though I'm not a big gambler,
Yeah.
I just love the feeling of being in a casino. The sounds, the lights, even the
sure.
smell of secondhand smoke in the air.
Yeah.
It's just a
No matter
beautiful
where you
thing.
go. Yeah.
And so it's always been a fascination with me, and maybe that's why with Hunter S. Thompson, just the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, so I kind of go
it
to
all
that.
interrelates.
And it's just, again, it's a different type of entertainment. So I've always been in the entertainment industry.
For
So
sure.
I worked for the casino, so I understand a lot how they work.
Nice.
And
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is there any like tricks of the trade that you can share as far as the casinos go and Las Vegas goes?
Well, the biggest thing with me, because I was working in the marketing department,
Oh,
and so I'd
interesting.
have to do campaigns.
Yeah.
So we do a campaign, for example, where it's like, spend $10, get $10. And I
Nice.
do some campaigns where the return on that was like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Really?
So you just give a little bit, and then just basically you got to bring them in by any means necessary. That's why Vegas
No
is so,
kidding.
it's so cheap to get there.
Yeah.
But once you get there,
And then that's where the money gets spent?
yes. And also too, it's keep them in the casino at all costs.
No kidding.
As long as they're in there, there's chances they're gonna leave with less money. So
That is so cool, man. You know, you're on the Wealthy Marketer show,
yes.
and we never talked about marketing almost this whole time.
Right.
But then you're telling me that you were in the marketing department at a casino?
Yes.
It goes to show you that marketing does work.
Yes.
In all industries, and it's needed, right? Even in the casino business.
Because you also too, it's just like, because in the casinos you're doing live entertainment, the live games, the drinking. It's
sure.
it's a whole thing.
Awesome, man. Sounds like fun.
Oh.
Jayo, it's been a pleasure having you on the Wealthy Marketer show. I really enjoyed taking you on this East Vancouver get-together. I hope you had a good time too.
Thanks so much for having me.
Just let everybody know where they can find you and what they can expect from you next.
Well, you can find me at Jayo Staxx, basically across everything. Just Google that, you'll find me. And hopefully you'll see me on a network TV show or a big Hollywood movie soon. So that's where you can find me.
Cheers.
Cheers.